PPC, PPC, PPC. I'm Danielle Metz.
I'm Robert Vaughn.
And this is the Danielle Metz Show. Quote, individual freedom. What is that? Does every culture in the world celebrate individual freedom? I think that it was Jordan Peterson, Toronto professor, who said it best when he talked about the intersectionalists, the people who are talking about all the different clusters of groups and collectives and ethnicities and races and sexual orientations and breaking them down into intersections. And he said all they have to do is keep going until they get to the real polity. That is the individual. That's what individual freedom is all about. It's about individual rights. That's what is core to our identity. It means that the government is our servant, not our master. We are the polity of Canada. This is a small segment of a speech that my esteemed co-host Robert Vaughn gave as Master of Ceremonies introducing the leader of the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier, at a function here in London, Ontario. As I said to him then, now in private, and will repeat now in public, I am so proud to know him and have him as my co-host. Some of you may have noticed that we missed a few shows during the last couple of months. This hiatus was necessary for Robert to fulfill his role as campaign manager for Dr. Salim Mansour, who ran for the People's Party of Canada in London North Centre, a task which took precedence over this rinky-dink podcast.
Rinky-dink.
Robert gave of his time to engage in the fight for freedom, which is a tough and bloody fight. He physically stood up to hecklers, wrangled a bunch of ragtag volunteers, put out fires, and held up spirits, despite knowing the inevitable outcome. The People's Party of Canada did not only lost the last federal election, but its leader, Maxime Bernier, lost his own seat. So, Robert, where do we go from here?
Yeah, you're right about the already knowing the outcome when you're entering into this fray. Although, to tell you the truth, there's always hope. There's always that little bit of glimmer of hope because, you look at Brexit and Trump and all of these other movements over there that have succeeded. There was always the hope that this PPC thing could succeed as well and we'd get a few seats. Though the polls never changed throughout the entire campaign, even after Maxime was allowed onto the debate stage with the rest of the leaders, which was a momentous decision by the Governor-General Johnson to allow him to do that. That really changed the dynamic of the entire election. Unfortunately, it didn't result in any uptick in the polls whatsoever. So I was a little despondent about that we weren't going to get more than 1 or 2% of the vote. But 1 or 2% of the vote is still almost 300,000 Canadians supporting the PPC.
And the party's only been around for a year.
Just a little over a year, yeah.
September 14th was the anniversary, right?
Yes. So 13 months, we ran in almost every riding and got 1/3 people voting for us and made some great friends and acquaintances and connections and networking. So all in all, I think it was successful for a first run. I like to think that this was our Juno Beach, and we're waiting for our Vimy Ridge to liberate not Europe, but Canada. And of course, Juno Beach, for those who don't know, was the designated landing during the Second World War of the Canadian contingent to help liberate Europe on the beaches of Normandy. So that was a success. One of our fans actually said it was Dieppe, our Dieppe. And I'm going, well, Trevor, Dieppe was a failure. I don't think this was a failure. This was a success. It was a beachhead. This was our beachhead. And from here on, it would have been foolish for us to think that, Maxime was going to be Prime Minister and we're going to fill the Parliament with PPC members. No, that was never going to happen. This was the beachhead. Now, we've gotten it. We've got 45,000-ish members. We've got a network of people across the country now who are interconnected.
Yep. Very important.
Yeah, we've got all of the stuff that is necessary to run a credible campaign. As a matter of fact, I think we, in London North Centre with Salim Mansour, ran a fantastic campaign. We spent about $60,000. We had we had hundreds of signs. We had almost 100,000 pieces of literature delivered, knocking on doors. And For that, though, you still only get about 2% of the vote. So it didn't seem like the money mattered at this point, but the credibility certainly does matter. When you're able to garner that kind of cash and that kind of enthusiasm with a team of people to field a candidate, it feels good. And you know that you're part of something that's not necessarily going to die overnight, if it does at all. This is a movement. So when you ask where we go from here, forward, to quote Justin Trudeau, you go forward.
But this time it means something. When he says forward, it's a meaningless thing. When it comes to us, it's like somebody I spoke with recently said, in Egypt, they know that the pyramids, the foundation is the hardest thing to build. That takes the most time. And then as you go up and up and up, it becomes easier and easier and easier and less work. We are at the bottom of the pyramid. And we have to keep in mind that the fact that we even got this amount of enthusiasm in that amount of short of time, and that we had campaigns that had so little time to rent offices, get signs, do all that stuff, and had no groundwork crew in place like the major parties or the established parties have, and yet they still got all this stuff done. I look at this as that was a dry run. That was a test. Then the next election, which basically started now because this is a minority government and we never know when this is going to collapse. Got to keep going as if we're still in election mode. At least at a low burn, but keep it going in the sense that don't lose connections, keep the contacts close, make sure everybody is talking to everybody else, get better known for who is responsible for what and what to expect going forward. And I think that's really what has to be done at this point in time. And it's a great time to introduce the PPC to Canada. I mean, we are fighting the media, the mainstream media or the lamestream media or the establishment media. They are our worst enemies. They are the ones that are going to keep trying to ignore us, defame us, calling us racist, xenophobe, whatever the current buzzword is. And we have to defeat that narrative by approaching Canada on our own when the election's not on. So there's time to explain our platforms, time to explain what we believe in, what we stand for, which is the people of Canada and freedom.
I would agree. And it just remains to be seen what our target or targets should be during this hiatus between elections. And I think it should be the Conservative Party of Canada. As much as
you mean conservative?
Exactly. I think, and I've been doing a lot of thought about the role of the Conservative government, the role of the Liberal Party, or Conservative Party and Liberal Party, coming up to this next election, and that would be the Conservative Party is a firewall, if you will, to use actually a Salim Mansur term that he was hoping that the PPC would be. But he's a firewall between the people who support the PPC, in other words, individualist, freedom-loving Canadians, Canadians who are have an insight into what it means to be truly Canadian in a political sense, and government. The Conservatives are that group of people, that organization which is preventing Canada from being free. And the Liberals have always been more or less, the mainstream media like to call them the natural ruling party of Canada. And that's only because they've won most of the elections. In the past 90 years, the Conservatives have only 4 majority governments. In 90 years, 4 governments. And yet they hang on.
That's because the seat of power is in Quebec, and most Liberals come from Quebec.
That's true. Now with this dismal record of minority governments, only 4 majority governments in 90 years, they cling to this conservative, and I put that in quotes because they're not, none of them could tell me what they're trying to conserve. This Conservative Party is preventing people and movements like the People's Party of Canada from succeeding because people think that they are the natural opposition to the natural ruling party, which is the Liberals. and they're not.
They think they're voting for the opposite, but they're just really voting for more of the same, but just a different color and a different letter.
Exactly. The brand of the Conservative Party of Canada has been taken over by the Laurentian elite, by the left, just as much as the Liberal Party has been taken over by an elite group of, and I have to call them, they're insane. They're absolutely insane. The Justin Trudeau, Catherine McKenna type of Liberal Party today is nothing like the Liberal Party of 50 years ago, of Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Nothing like it. It is a bizarro world that we have somebody like Justin Trudeau and his cadre of buffoons and clowns running this country
he's horrible.
yet again. And people should look at how much of the polls it took to get this clown show elected. Because now I haven't run the numbers recently, but the last election, 2015, Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party was elected with only 26.1% of the electorate. Now that's different than 26.1% of the turnout, because he got got somewhere between 30 and 35% of the turnout of the votes, but he only got 26% of the electorate. And by that I mean that of all the people who could have voted, only 26.1% voted for Trudeau in 2015. He just lost 1 million votes in this election. So you can be pretty sure that less than a quarter of Canadians now support the government in power. Less than a quarter. And the reason for that is the Conservative Party of Canada. Going out there, buying votes, rigging the internal election for the leadership of the Conservative Party to favor Scheer, actually hiring Warren Kinsella, a professional
that's the most disgusting thing I've heard.
Yeah, professional mudslinger. Everybody to Warren Kinsella is a racist. If you don't agree with Warren Kinsella, you're a racist. And so the Conservative Party and Andrew Scheer, although they are denying it, hired Warren Kinsella to spread the rumor, the false rumor, that Maxime Bernier, the People's Party, and anybody who supports the People's Party are racist. And so that's what they did. That's how low this Conservative Party has been. So going forward, and I hate that phrase, but there's nowhere to go but forward.
So moving towards the future, how about that?
Yes, how about just not putting that in there because the sentence sounds the same and means the same without saying going forward. What we need to do is to attack the Conservative Party as being a sham party. They're not conservative, and they have no core identity. Just like Justin Trudeau said that
Justin
Canada
Trudeau nailed the Conservatives when he said that. He didn't mean Canada, he meant the Conservatives.
Exactly.
And that is true.
They have no core ideology, no core identity. You ask a conservative, what are you trying to conserve? You're trying to conserve all the socialist programs brought in by all of the Liberal governments? Because they are. There's not a single program that the Conservative Party would axe. Of all of the Liberal programs that were brought in over the last 100 years, or at least since the last war, the Second World War, because all of the socialist programs came in post-45, the Conservatives have supported. The Conservatives brought in multiculturalism officially.
Yep.
And so they are a firewall wing of the Liberal Party. They have to be taken out of the game. And that's where the focus of the PPC should be in the future.
Basically the Liberal Party has the Conservatives as like a wing of their party. So when the plebes, the poor people in the country that don't know any better, go, oh, well, it's time for a change. Let's vote for the Conservatives, which is exactly the exact same policies as the Liberals, with maybe minor tweaks or putting a new fresh paint coat on it or something like that. But they're both the same thing. And it's just, they're trying to fool the Canadian public to say, oh, well, you have a choice. You got the NDP, which is liberal hard. You've got the Liberals, which is the natural ruling party of the country. You've got the Conservatives, which just gives you that feeling that maybe you voted for something different for a change. And that's it. Oh, unless you're in Quebec, then you got the Bloc. And if you're really wacko, you can go for the Greens.
That's true. And all of these parties are extreme left. The NDP and the Greens are pure communist. They are pure communist if they ever got into power. real power, that is, unmitigated power, then this country would be a communist country. And I mean that in the big capital C sense of that word.
No messing around. We mean it.
No. And the fact that Jagmeet Singh and the NDP now hold the balance in the parliament, because now Justin Trudeau has to go cap in hand, or turban in hand, to Jagmeet Singh for his vote, that is pretty bad as it is.
Well, Mark Steyn made it when remarking upon the Canadian election, because he has a somewhat bit of a stake in it because he is Canadian himself, said that there are six parties in Canada. 5 of them are all on the left, and then you got the People's Party.
That's true.
That's the only one on the right, and he nailed it perfectly. No messing about. He clarified that position, because I think a lot of people think that the Conservatives are on the right because they try to sell themselves as not a other choice to the Liberals, but as the opposition to the Liberals. But they're not, and you can understand why people get confused. If you're not in the know, if you don't follow these things, if you don't see, you follow policy, you don't follow anything like that, you can see how people go, well, yeah, but that sign is a different color than this sign, so therefore they must be different. But it's not.
Well, yes, and just to harken back to our last show, it's understandable why people don't research the political parties out there, because it requires a lot of time. However, I don't think it takes that much research to be able to, as Lord Christopher Monckton once said to us, to identify the rot when you see it. People know BS when they see it, and that's why a lot of them, and again, more of them this election than last, stay at home, didn't even vote. Because they actually believe the rot, unfortunately, that the media had to say about the People's Party, and the lies that Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau and Andrew Scheer are saying about the People's Party, and that's unfortunate. So what we have to do is I would like to see more lawsuits. I would like to see people who are calling Maxime Bernier or anybody racist taken to court for slander and liable. And that's the only way to stop this nonsense. There
has to be consequences to these kinds of things.
Exactly.
That's the problem. Everybody thinks that, oh well, he's just name calling. Yeah, but there is consequences to it. There should be. You are affecting somebody's career. You are affecting their reputation. You are affecting their they're public figures, but it makes even more so of an impact. Like, if you called me a racist, nobody would care because nobody knows who I am. But if you're calling somebody who's running for office a racist, or a public figure in any way, shape, or form, you better have something to back it up, because you're damaging that person's reputation, their profile, and the way the public sees them, and that's horrible. But nobody wants to take that burden, and it's costly. See, it's free to insult somebody. It costs you money to defend yourself.
Right. The Hamilton police made 3 arrests or charges in the protest that happened outside of the Hamilton event, where the PPC leader Maxime Bernier and Dave Rubin were about to speak. And so that's what has to happen. Arrests have to be made in cases like that.
Yep.
The courts have to make the proper decisions, which is to find them guilty. And in the case of some of the people who were arrested at Hamilton, if they're not Canadian citizens, gone.
Yeah.
Exported, not allowed into the country again. Those kinds of things, the rule of law has to be upheld and obeyed.
Enforced equally to everyone, not rules for thee and not for thee. They let those people go. Well, why would you? If somebody on the right wing had done that, you would have thrown the book at them. And that's how it goes. That's always the way it is. And people start losing their respect for law when they see it's unequally enforced. And Antifa can get away with stuff because they're Antifa. They have people in the States, the mayors of cities, giving them free reign. And the Proud Boys, they go to jail for 4 years when they get charged.
Yeah, well, that's because the councillors of Portland or wherever in the United States, and perhaps even in Canada, a lot of the people in charge, the judges, the councillors, the people who run the police, are themselves globalists, communists,
Yeah.
socialists. They are anti-freedom, anti-individual, and they are comrades in arms with the Antifa thugs out there who are calling people racist, preventing people from going to meetings, intimidating them, which is, by the way, all of that is against the law. The very fact
Yep.
that those protesters would prevent anyone or hinder or intimidate anyone from going into a political meeting is blatantly against the law.
Yep.
All of those protesters, with bar none, should have been arrested and charged under the Elections Canada Act for
Yeah.
trying to influence or prevent people from exercising their right to listen to somebody who's running for office. And so
But
that's what we have to do going forward.
Yeah, and that's
is
what we have to realize. That's what we're up against, is that kind of stuff where no one's on our side except for the people that believe the truth and
The
that
law.
are moral and believe in individual freedom.
The law is on
All
our
the
side.
establishments against us.
Yeah, but the law is on our side, and that's the main thing. The law is on our side. We have to find
Yeah,
judges.
well, I don't. It seems to be a little bit on the selectively enforcement side.
No, but the law is on our side.
Well, yeah, the law itself, yes, but the people that enforce the law, not so much.
That's why we have to do what people like Gary McHale in Caledonia did when he actually arrested a police officer for not upholding the law. He had, I think you'd have to go back and find out the details about this, but in Caledonia, where there were Aboriginal thugs preventing people from walking down the street as he was, with a Canadian flag, he was assaulted. Tapped the guy on the shoulder, "You're under arrest for assault." Gave the guy over to the policeman just walked away. Tapped the policeman on the shoulder, "You're under arrest, under mandamus, for not obeying or upholding the law. Here I have given you somebody who's broken the law, and you're not enforcing it, so under a mandamus, which is a little known thing, they don't have it in the States, but they have it in Commonwealth countries. If an officer of the court is not found to uphold the law, they can be charged with not doing their duty, and that's what Gary McHale did, and he's successful at it. So what we have to do in the People's Party is know the rules of the game a little better.
Yep.
We have to, there's been letters across my desk of a lot of infractions that happen at the polls, where people are voting and being intimidated to vote. They don't even speak English, which, by the way, which should be a red flag that they're not even Canadian citizens, because you have to understand.
Or they're newly minted Canadian citizens.
You have to understand either English or French to be able to be a Canadian citizen, and you have to be a Canadian citizen to vote. So if there's people going to the polls not speaking one of the official languages, that should be a red flag. They should be challenged.
No kidding.
Their citizenship should be challenged, which, by the way, is the right of any scrutineer to challenge anybody's citizenship right there at the polls. But we're not doing it. Now, this person who was at the polls and identified a whole slew of irregularities. One was that if they couldn't identify properly what was selected on the ballot, they assumed that it went to the Liberal.
Really?
Yeah, because, well, the Liberals polling higher, so let's just assume this vote goes to the Liberals, even though we're not sure. Things like that. That's why we need scrutineers at the polls. We need to understand the law better. We need to understand how this process works
and use it to
better.
our advantage for a change, as opposed to them using it to theirs.
Exactly. This person also said that the NDP had scrutineers there, and they were tough. They were asking to look at all of the spoiled ballots, making sure that they were properly
Yeah, the communists
recorded.
are really regimented.
It's true. They know how to play the game. Kudos to them. That's why they get power. And the PPC, to play this game, have to understand it, have to participate at that level as well. Not just go out there and assume that just because you have a better mousetrap, people are going to beat a path to your door. They're not. You have to use the game. You have to play the game. You have to understand it and game the game.
Yeah, the problem is with people that have moral and ethical qualms with how the game is played, it takes a lot to get them angry enough to use the game. And I think that's the biggest problem, because they'll go, well, no, everybody should just be nice to each other, everybody should play fair, but Nobody plays fair. Like
This
they
is
don't.
not the Canada of 1950, man. We don't play
No.
fair anymore in this country.
It's not the world. Anywhere,
No.
where in the world does anybody play fair?
No,
Where in the world is the law applied equally to everybody? Not in the States, and that's arguably the freest country in the world. Not in Canada, which is pretty close, and not anywhere in Europe. I mean, Brexit, we see what they're going through with the whole country voted to want Brexit, and they're just dragging their feet, stonewalling. They have the Supreme Court overturning it's mind-boggling the stranglehold the elite and the traditional status quo has on the free Western world, and they do not want to let it go, and they're fighting tooth and nail to hang on to it, which is why we have to take the opportunity to make our voices heard.
Well, that's why that is
PPC.
Yeah, but the thing is that people have to realize in the People's Party of Canada that while Canada is a rather peaceful country, and we like to think that our neighbors are not out to kill us, a lot of them are. And we have to realize that. We have to realize that these people are reprehensible. And I'm not just talking about the voters who vote Liberal, NDP, or Green. I'm talking about the organizers, the people themselves. Elizabeth May, Justin Trudeau, Jagmeet Singh are evil people holding and harboring evil ideologies, which if they had total reign for a number of years will destroy your lives and your livelihoods. And so nothing stops them from breaking the rules, from lying, from cheating, from fraudulently for voting, for burning ballots, as Andrew Scheer did and the Conservative Party did after he won the leadership. These are reprehensible people harboring reprehensible ideologies, and we have to know that this is a dirty war that we're in, and a dirty game. And sometimes you have to play dirty, and we have to get our hands a little dirty too. And I'm not necessarily saying that we should be fraudulent, we should be lying. I'm saying that we have to use all of the tactics at our disposal to stop these people. I mean that if somebody calls you a racist, you sue them. That if somebody has committed electoral fraud, you go through the steps to make sure that they're taken to court, and justice is meted out at them. It's a nasty business, and it's quite easy for people to become complacent and sit back and then just okay, well, that election's over, let's just ride it out until the writ is dropped next time, and then start the ball rolling then. But it's too late. We've got to start now, exposing people, threatening people.
The next
with
election
lawsuits.
has started right now. This is the next election right now.
Exactly, yeah. So let's use all of those 45,000 members in the People's Party and the thousands of people that have networked through social media to keep the ball rolling, to keep a running record of what's going on with Justin Trudeau and Andrew Scheer and how they're voting, and make people know about it, and keep the fire to the feet of the media, because they're the worst of the bunch. They're no longer the fourth estate. They are part of the estate. They are part of the government.
They're the Liberal Party.
They are indeed, yeah. So forward.
Well, we're not. We're not here at Just Right Media, and definitely not on the Danielle Metz Show. So stay tuned. We'll keep you updated as to where we're going with this, and we'll talk to you soon. Cheers.
If you've enjoyed this presentation, visit justrightmedia.org for more programming that's not right-wing, it's just right.